The Battle of Fredericksburg, The Wall, December 11th through 13th, 1862. In the sleepy small town of Fredericksburg, Virginia, located along the Rappahannock, General Robert E. Lee of the Confederate forces met in battle with General Ambrose Burnside of the Union forces. Union General Burnside, in an attempt to bring the Civil War to an early close, moved his troops from Pennsylvania into Virginia with plans to race General Lee to Richmond to take the Confederate capital. Confederate General Robert E. Lee, upon hearing of these plans, marched his troops to meet Burnside at Fredericksburg. Considered an old-style town according to the locals even in 1862, it had a population of nearly 5,000 people. Burnside and his Union troops arrived near Fredericksburg in mid-November and set up camp across the Rappahannock River. Burnside needed supplies to be sent from Washington, D.C. to build pontoon bridges for his troops to cross the river. General Burnside organized his Army of the Potomac into 3 divisions of 120,000 Union soldiers. 114,000 of these would be engaged in the upcoming Battle of Fredericksburg. As Burnside waited for supplies, it was suggested he take his troops and cross the river to scatter the then small Confederate troops of only 500 men in Fredericksburg. Burnside, however, decided against this plan as the fall rains had made the river crossing difficult and dangerous. After receiving supplies from Washington, D.C., the Union engineers were finally able to begin construction of the pontoon bridges. General Robert E. Lee anticipated Burnside would soon cross the Rappahannock and gathered all his forces to Fredericksburg and took the high grounds of Mary's Heights west of the town. Confederate General Lee's troops of Northern Virginia had nearly 85,000 soldiers, with 72,500 of them now based at Fredericksburg. On December 11, 1862, Union engineers began assembling the 6 pontoon bridges that were needed to cross the Rappahannock. They did this under constant fire of Confederate sharpshooters. Union gunners tried shelling the town, sending more than 5,000 missiles into Fredericksburg to rid themselves of the snipers, but that did not work. So finally, Union soldiers, under constant sniper fire, rode across the river and engaged Confederate soldiers stationed near the Rappahannock. By nightfall, 4 brigades of Union troops now occupied Fredericksburg. The city of 5,000 by this time was mostly evacuated, with just a few stragglers fleeing by foot in the shadows of the mostly destroyed buildings and nearby wheat fields. Early on the morning of December 12th, a dense fog had set in and did not lift until 10 a.m., giving both the Union and Confederate troops an opportunity to position themselves for the battle that was soon to take place. As the fog lifted, rounds of artillery began to fire from both the north and south positions. Troops on both sides fired and became engaged in the battle. The Confederate troops moved forward and threatened to drive the Union army back into the river. Then Confederate troops drew back to the safety of the hills, while Burnside focused his attacks on Mary's Height, a ridge rising about 50 feet above the town, where Confederate troops stood there waiting their ground for their opportunity to attack. The avenue of approach to Mary's Heights was mostly through open fields, scattered houses and gardens, and fenced land. It was there a narrow lane, called the Telegraph Road, but known to locals as the Sunken Road, cut through near the base of Mary's Heights. This road was protected by a stone wall 4 foot in height and reinforced with log breastwork. This was a perfect location for the Confederate Army to lay in wait. By 11 a.m., Union troops advanced under heavy fire towards the stone wall. Time and time again, troops advanced towards the muddy slopes of Mary's Heights, only to be cut down by repeated rifle fire. Generals, both Union and Confederate, were shocked by the carnage. By nightfall, nearly 8,000 Union soldiers and 1,200 Confederate soldiers lay upon the cold ground at Fredericksburg. On December 14th, Burnside requested a truce to attend to the wounded, which General Robert E. Lee graciously granted. On December 15, 1862, Union forces retreated across the Rappahannock River, and the Battle of Fredericksburg came to an end. During this battle, the Union Army suffered 12,653 casualties killed, wounded, or captured. The Confederate Army suffered 5,377 casualties killed, wounded, or captured. In Richmond, Virginia, the city newspaper, The Examiner, reported, "Stunning defeat to the invader, a splendid victory to the defender of our soil."